Hello, it's Imogen here from BodyIntelligence, and I am joined, as I so often am, by my good friend and colleague, Shay Seaborne, who's a trauma awareness educator and who co-teaches the Foundations of Regulation course with me. So we're here today to talk about the value of just a tiny little bit. So we'll go into what we mean by this, but kind of conventional wisdom is all about the big changes that we can make and kind of all in on something. And we kind of want to go in the other direction and look at the value of just these tiny little things that might take us for a moment a little bit in the direction that we want to go in. So welcome, Shay. So can you say a little bit more about that, the context? What do we mean? What is a tiny little bit? A tiny little bit of what?
A tiny bit of anything that might be challenging, like a thought, an emotion, a memory, sensory input, exposure, whatever seems like it might be too big to meet with comfort. But it can also be, as we work often with ease, it can also be overwhelming to notice ease in your body if you have a lot of trauma and stress. So even that needs to be addressed in tiny little bits.
Yes, so if you can get comfortable with ease for a moment, it might mean, if you've done that a few times, that you can become comfortable then for 3 moments and then 7 moments. Yeah, but also the idea of regular and frequent is really helpful, I think. So,
yeah, that's how our nervous systems work best, when we're exposed to frequent small amounts, because each time we use those neural pathways, each time those neurons fire, they build a stronger bond in us. So it's not like we want to just make this thing happen. We want a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, so those neurons have the chance to actually build, rather than demanding too much from our nervous system at once.
So kind of coming back to this idea of the challenging, difficult things, the problems that it might be very important for us to look at and face and process and problem solve around and all the things. But you're saying that even those things, we don't want to kind of go head on into that. We want to just take on a tiny little bit.
Yes, because it's counterproductive to overwhelm the nervous system. It's actually re-traumatizing, and it doesn't produce the results that we want, and that can lead to frustration and even self-blame and shame.
So that's why the tiny little bit is so important to someone whose nervous system is dysregulated, because it would just be overwhelming to look at the whole thing, or to be immersed in the whole thing, whatever that whole thing is.
The nervous system's already overloaded, so you don't want to add more load to it. You want to relieve the load, and you can do that with the tiny little bits of exposure.
So can you give me an example? So to make this a little bit more concrete.
I'll use something of my own. I have medical PTSD from a variety of reasons. So visiting a new provider is very problematic for me. I might not be able to make that phone call for weeks. I might think about it, or look at their name and the number I wrote down, or go to the website and read some reviews and look at their picture, and then maybe drive by the office, and then maybe walk by the office, And then
so
maybe
you're saying this might be like one day you do one of these little
Mhm.
steps, like look at the website,
Mhm.
and then you might gradually be able to build up.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
hopefully by the time when you actually have to have the appointment, you, while not exactly comfortable,
I'm a lot more familiar with
you're
it, and I
a little
feel
more
safe.
ready to face it. Yeah,
Yeah, because I've had that little bits of exposure, and each one of them presumably felt safe.
Mm. I'm noticing our notes that you talk about curiosity and exposure being just enough to satisfy a little bit of curiosity. Can
Mhm.
you?
Yeah, that's what we're really looking for. Being curious allows us to be open to new information that we otherwise would miss, and that's really what we need, especially when we're dealing with something that's difficult. So if we have just a little bit and we're curious about it, like what happens when I think the thought new doctor?
For a moment.
Right. And then
Yeah.
I notice, oh, my body says, I'm not seeing that doctor, or maybe it can work. And paying attention to that is really important.
Hmm. So we're kind of talking in terms of uh, people who've experienced trauma, but I'm thinking this idea can be helpful to everyone, really.
Mhm.
um,
Yeah, you don't have to be traumatized to benefit from this. In fact, pretty much everybody's nervous system is overloaded in our culture today. So nobody needs more additional stress. And especially like I said, the self degradation and shame that often come with not meeting these goals of pushing through or whatever it is that our whole culture tells us we should do, instead of paying attention to what our nervous system can handle.
mm. I'm also thinking, and it's probably also related to our culture of getting things done.
Mm.
Um, um, but often we kind of think, oh, that job's too big, or that thing is too big for me to do. But if we can break it down in the same way you were talking about breaking down kind of exposure to going to a medical appointment, but you could break down a job you have to do into, like, well, okay, today I'm just going to open a Word document and make a title. So I've
Mhm.
got it started. The
Yes.
next day, so
Mhm.
you could really break any jobs down like that.
Yes.
Um, if it
Yeah,
just feels like too overwhelming, too big of a thing to take on.
that's a great example. That's exactly what I did with my complaint against a predatory surgeon. It took me 3 years of a little bit. Like anytime I got really ticked off or upset at what he did to me and how he's getting away with it, I would do one little thing. And I might just open up the spreadsheet and put, here's the number for this attorney for me to call later, or something, just any little thing that helped me feel like I was going forward without distressing me further.
Mm. So I mentioned earlier the idea of tiny little bits, but regularly and often. So that applies not only to, like we've been talking about, when it's a stressful situation or an overwhelming job that you can break down,
Mhm.
but to even the good things, because if good things have not been trustworthy or safe in the past, that even though that's what we crave as humans and what our nervous system needs, it may not feel safe. So
Even something as I would say neutral as ease. As you remember from our early sessions, at first, even the idea of ease was too much for me, and I couldn't notice it except for one little tiny spot up here.
Mhm.
And yeah, to the hypervigilant nervous system, the idea of relaxing, of even being at ease for a few seconds could be a real threat. Wait a minute, if I'm not on guard, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah,
And that
yeah.
comes from years and years of training. So it's really valuable to be able to just have ways to touch into that ease for just a moment and then come back to normal dysregulation that feels so good. And then another drop of ease. And like you said, it helps desensitize, build familiarity, and also build those neural pathways so that we can enjoy and experience more of it.
At risk of a slight tangent, you're reminding me of the idea of glimmers that we've talked about in our weekly study group, which is just noticing moments that make you feel good in some way.
Yeah, that's a wonderful way to build your capacity, first to notice them. The more you notice them, the more you will notice them, but also your capacity to enjoy them. The more familiar you are with those good feelings in your body, the more you can enjoy them and have them. And this goes for even, I'm going to use the word training for like practices that we do, that we teach. A little bit of practice, a little bit of practice, a little bit of practice, drip, 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 does the same thing. It builds the capacity in the nervous system without being a threat.
Yeah, I mean, we have our basic practice, which is called the cycle. There's a whole other video where I guide it. And that in and of itself only takes about 2 minutes to do. But that can feel overwhelming, and you can break it down and you can just do one tiny portion of it that takes 1 second, basically, if you need to go that far, and anything in between. So everything is very gentle and small, just moment by moment, and you can adjust and do just as much as you're able and feels helpful.
At nervous system speed, that's the real important thing. And also that even that one little tiny, say I can't do the whole cycle, which is 40 times of the constructive thought. What if I can only do one? Well, that's broken my cycle of distress right there for that little second. And that's a relief to my whole nervous system and everything that depends on it, which is everything in me and the people around me.
And I would say, if you can do that just at once, that one thought, that one moment of awareness in that a way that's different from the normal hypervigilance, but then you can start sprinkling these one moments regularly through your day. It seems like nothing. I think this is one of the reasons I really wanted to talk about this, is that people, I'm sure including myself, will dismiss the value of just this like moment, this tiny little bit that seems like, well, it felt slightly better for him. But that just slight movement in a different direction, that slight disruption to the normal tension or dysregulation, or however you want to think of it, is huge. And we can really build on these little moments.
Yes, because what we're really doing is repatterning. We're changing the patterns of our habits, both the physical and so-called mental and emotional. And you can't just do that by going, I'm just going to stop having these negative feelings. Ta-da! The body doesn't work that way.
Right. And we also, it's not the subject of this video, but we also talk about this kind of noticing and acknowledging and knowing what's going on, but learning to have be able to have a little bit of space between. You're present to it. You're not dismissing, you're not rejecting, but you're also not like full on.
Yes. Yeah. And that is so valuable, especially for anybody under stress or trauma.
But that too, just little bit by little bit by little bit. Anything else you wanted to say about this idea of the kind of drip, 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 and just the tiny little bit?
I had jotted down something, ideas for about how do we structure these little bits in our lives. I've given some examples for myself, but in general, just start thinking about a tiny little bit. Notice what you notice inside you, and then try saying it aloud and notice what you notice, and then try titrating it. We use a special process for that in our groups, but anybody can do. Like, I have problems telling the visceral difference between gratitude and grief. They feel a lot alike to me. And so when I feel gratitude, I often feel grief at the same time. And that's really annoying. And it makes
I also want to say it's very normal for humans to have more than one emotion. We kind of think in a very binary way, but we can have multiple seemingly opposite feelings and emotions at the same time.
And a lot of people would think gratitude and grief are two opposite things, but in my body, they feel very similar, and they're confused because of my upbringing and my more recent environments. So I will just titrate that. I'll just say gratitude and just notice how it feels, and then say grief and notice, it feels similar, but there is a difference. And then I keep doing that back and forth, and that's helping my body learn the difference between the two. And once they're differentiated, then I can integrate them.
For anyone who doesn't know what titrate means, do you have just a very quick definition?
Well, it's basically little drops. I like to use baking soda and vinegar as an example, because a lot of people are familiar with those two substances in the kitchen. If you have a little cup of baking soda and you pour vinegar in it, it's going to go and make a big mess.
So that's why you don't want to go for a big bit. You want a little bit, right?
If you put a drop in, it'll go and then it'll die back down. It won't make a big mess. Yeah. That's the same effect in our nervous system.
So it makes it more tolerable to look at challenging.
And then when we can tolerate them, we can integrate them, and then we can move on to other more fun things.
Well, I don't think I have anything else, but I hope we've convinced you on the benefits and value of these just even momentary shifts that we can do.
And taking it at nervous system speed.
Yes. So thank you, Shay. We'd love to hear from anyone watching, if you have experience with kind of working with tiny little bits, or how you relate, or comments that you have about anything that we've said. So we will be back soon with another video. I'm not quite sure what our next topic is, but it'll be something interesting
and awesome.
Yes. Okay.